Cool, got the audio. Still got my water. That one is dead. Wait, hold on.
Support.
Hello everybody and welcome back to another e-reader review. Previously here on the channel, I went ahead and gave a review to the Kindle, and the #1 request on that video was for me to give the competition a try and pick up a Kobo, which I did. I read a couple of books on it, and when I was about 85% of the way through the review, Kobo released a whole new line, and I did not want the video to be dead on release, essentially outdated from go. So I went ahead and I picked up the newest version. This was actually sent to me from Kobo to give my thoughts on, and I'm happy I did, despite being 85% of the way done with the video and having to abandon it in a last pass through. This has been an interesting experience going ahead and getting into the latest and greatest promises of what e-readers can deliver. So today, I'm going to be comparing the reading experience of a Kindle versus a Kobo. A few notes before we get into it. The biggest elephant in the room: I'm not exactly a fan of Amazon, just their general practices, things along those lines, and that's why I've returned every Kindle I've bought after giving it a try for here on the channel. I am going to be setting that aside. I'm not trying to make any big digs or claims here. I just want to know, yeah, I'm not going to go for a Kindle for that reason. You can agree with me or not, but I'm not going to make it the deciding factor in this video for who I recommend which e-reader to. And the final thing is, when we were being given this by Kobo so I could do the latest and most updated review, we are now talking with Kobo about a potential future collaboration for charity, though again, that is going to have no effect on my thoughts here in the review. But all right, without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into the review after a quick word from today's sponsor. And that's because today's video is sponsored by Squarespace. Squarespace is the all-in-one platform that allows entrepreneurs to get their businesses going today. Whether you're starting out or managing a growing brand, Squarespace is here to help you stand out in the crowd. Squarespace makes it easy to create a beautiful and engaging website for your entire audience and sell anything from products to content to time. This comes with an environment that encourages you to learn the tips and tricks of the trade while being jam-packed with features to give you an edge over everybody else who's not also using Squarespace. Their asset library allows you to upload, organize, and access all of your content from one place, as well as manage all your files from one central hub and use them across the entire Squarespace platform. And if you're sitting there going, but golly, I never coded a day in my life, dearie, don't worry. Even if you do not have a background in coding like myself, Squarespace's Fluid Engine allows you to literally drag and drop to create your perfect ideal website. Squarespace's website templates provide you with a list of professional designs for every category and use, so you can customize them to fit your needs and not feel formulaic. And Unlock Creativity allow you to micromanage, which we all secretly like to do, exactly how your brand can come across. So whether it's blogs, email campaigns, appointment scheduling, gated member areas, and more, they've got everything you need. So head on over to Squarespace for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/DanielGreen to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain and get your business that edge today. Back to the video. And just so you know, I have given 2 Kobos a try, and I've also given a few different Kindles a try. This is only one that I kept for so long I couldn't return it, so it's only one remaining in my house for display purposes. But when I'm talking about Kindle versus Kobo, it is a more well-rounded view of their lineup than just what's on the table here. So let's start with the hardware. Interestingly, in the first draft of this video, this category was pretty much a runaway for Kindle. They just kind of felt sturdier made in the hand, and despite my preference for Kobo's tendency to have more buttons, everything else within hardware was so close that Kindle ended up edging out just by having a better feel to it. That being said, the Kobo Libra color, which is the premium of premium if you want to pick up for the Kobo line, does even things out quite a bit. Despite my not exactly loving how much flex there is to this device, actually more than on the previous generation of Kobo due to it being thinner, the Kindle has like none whatsoever, and so it feels really strong. In nearly every other way, the Kobo's hardware has seriously stepped up here. Yes, there is the capacity to display color within this device, which is something we'll get into a lot more later, but the edges are more rounded to have a much more pleasant feel in the hand, and the weight has been reduced and overall distributed without the device, if that makes sense, in a way that makes it feel much less present in your grasp. Phrasing. While we're talking about feel, a quick and easy thing to get out of the way, Kobo is also really marketing these cases to go along with their latest release. They have this cute little, you can fold it and then put it up and read from it this way thing. This is dumb and I do not like it. I just don't see that being used practically. Even in their own promo footage, the person's having to like awkwardly sit on the floor to match an angle where this is appropriate. There's no adjustability to it. It is if you want to sit at a reasonable height and stare downward. Yeah, I guess this case is for you, but overall, don't waste your money on this one. If you're a case person, which I'm not, just get a case that's gonna be cheaper. That nitpick aside, from there, the continued upgrade of the hardware is really impressive. This screen is of a high enough resolution and brightness capability that it's pretty much going to be readable in all environments, outside or in. Some previous generations of e-readers on Kindle and the Kobo side did struggle, even though they have that paper display in certain light conditions. And I'm happy to say the newest Kindles I've tried too also have reached a range with their screens where I don't think it should be a concern. If you're buying the newest generation, it's going to be readable in all environments, no matter what price point you're going for. Now, getting into that big marketing push they're talking about with color. This is going to be a huge deal for some people, and probably a decision maker for now, because it does look like Kindle is going to be responding with their own version of an e-reader that can display colors soon. At least that's what the market's saying online. But by soon, I mean, there's no exact date yet known, and you could go from just waiting a little bit to possibly a year or more. And specifically, if a decent chunk of your reading on the go is made up with manga or comics, Kobo is just by default, I think, the winner here. To the point where I think you could even stop the review and be like, done. Because not only are you actually gonna be able to get manga in color, but the aspect ratio for the screen, I've just found to fit manga and comic panels more pleasantly than Kindle. For those of you who don't know, Kobo's screens tend to be a smidge wider, while Kindle is trying to go for that sleek, almost in the ballpark of like a fat phone dimension. I think the market has become aware of that though, and that has actually been a big appeal of Kobo, and that's why you've seen in response some Kindles be released in recent years that have a more Kobo aesthetic to them. Now, since way back when I first picked up an e-reader, my biggest complaint with them as a whole, Kindle or Kobo, has been just they feel out of date even at the highest tier because of how rough the hardware actually is able to load the software within it. And even with this latest generation upgrade from Kobo, you are still going to be clicking where you know things are going to appear on the screen before they actually load. Though I have to admit, it's substantially better. It's just substantially better from terrible on both sides is still only acceptable. And I would say that this generation of Kobo and the latest generation of Kindle are finally loading at a rate that is not frustration inducing. And I'm sure after I use these devices for more than just a few months, my muscle memory will remember how long things load and I'll be all right. But as of right now, I'm trying to click through menus and even type, and I'm hitting the next letter before the first has properly processed, and you gotta slow down. And then the final piece here, especially for the Kobo that has been big for their marketing, is the inclusion of this Stylus, which Kindle also offers an equivalent for. Because of the inclusion of this Stylus, the comparison of the Libra to the Kindle Scribe is inevitable, and I believe completely fair. And if having a super high quality Stylus with your e-reader is very important to you, I would absolutely say the substantially more expensive Kindle Scribe is the direction I would steer you towards. And again, the Kobo hardware just does not have as premium a feel here, while offering a ridiculous ridiculous amount of notebook presets, that doesn't make up the difference to me. Though the Libra does let you highlight in color and things along those lines that the Amazon Scribe does not, while the Amazon Scribe feels a whole lot better to write on. It's kind of a just depends on your preference situation. And finally, if you do not care about the stylus at all and you're still leaning Kobo, the new Kobo Clara is the color option they just released that doesn't bother including this pen that frankly I don't use much and isn't a deciding factor for me at all.
My only criticism of it is I don't know how I am supposed to attach this in a way where it actually stays on straight, but it doesn't do it well anywhere. And so you kind of end up with the magnets being strongest on the front here, but it refuses to actually stay aligned in a way that's I would call aesthetically pleasing. I swear to God, I have tried every possible spot. Someone in the comments is gonna point out that I'm just an idiot, and that's fine.
Does the pen go like here? No, not at all. That didn't even work a little bit for a second. Never mind.
With that said though, I am not someone who typically uses styluses for note taking. I much prefer to have my notes app on the side and everything else for like sketching out reviews, they're including in their promotional videos, I see as a bit of a gimmick, and it's not something I'm for sure gonna put into my reading habits. But to be clear, as someone who has used styluses on iPads and things and does get bothered when there's latency or drag, even for a more simple artistic process like drawing in this, it's absolutely acceptable. I was able to do some good doodles without it looking terrible. So if you're paying attention, the only way that I feel like hardware, the edge still goes to the Kindle, is that it does feel slightly higher quality in the hand, even in the cheaper, more outdated models. And if I had to theorize, that's because Amazon has a much greater sway and control in the market of being able to get their hands on a nicer material for a lower cost. And so they're able to do that for like the external feel of it all. But aside from that, the hardware, I know Kindle is going to respond to this and have an updated one in however long it takes them to put it out. But for now, I give it to Kobo. I didn't before. I want to be clear, in the last version of this video, I actually thought Kindle had nicer hardware than Kobo. But this upgrade just polished a lot of what the last Kobo was lacking, and the snappier feel to it all, the stylus, which if it's for you is nice, and especially the ability to display color is huge. And okay, speaking on the color and not just the technical aspect of it, the visuals of it, when I heard there was going to be an e-reader with color, I assumed it would look terrible. I assumed it would be a washed out, struggling and constantly draining the battery life feature that wasn't going to be worth it. But after reading through a couple volumes of a manga, no, I was absolutely wrong. It looks not vibrant, but certainly not washed out to the point of being bothersome. Now the screen does lose some of its resolution when apparently it's displaying color panels, but to my eye, I could not tell the difference. From a hardware standpoint, this product was a really good move from Kobo, but unfortunately is the only category in which Kobo runs away with a clear victory here. Not to negate the fact though that it's a really important category. But now let's move on. I'll make that transition with talking about something that's kind of a software and hardware thing. Battery life. I know some people are probably worried about a battery being drained by having color going on, or maybe being a bit faster means the battery's working harder. And on both this and the previous Kobo and my old Kindle, battery life is a null factor for e-readers now. And it has been for a while, I believe. Unless you are, for some reason, incapable of charging your e-reader for a full week and are using it for many hours every day, it's just not gonna be a problem. These things, even with aggressive use, how I was using them, do not fade fast enough to be a problem and are going to be absolutely outlasting your phone or other smart devices without breaking a sweat. It's kind of strange to say, but for e-readers, we've gotten good enough for battery life that it should not, in my opinion, be a deciding factor unless you are in some pretty severe edge cases. And if you are one of those specific edge cases, that should be the deciding factor for you.
So I would either go with the most basic Kobo or most basic Kindle, because despite them being the cheaper options, they seem to last longer because they were required to do less without having substantially worse hardware.
But in terms of the actual layout and environment you're navigating through, they're kind of just a horse apiece. I mean, here's footage of me buying a manga on both devices and opening it and starting it. And If you had just swapped these two stores and not told me, I probably wouldn't have even noticed that I was going through a different experience. Kobo has absolutely looked at what's tried and true for Kindle and copied it without breaking any laws, I'm sure, to be their approach for an environment for you to read in. I mean, continuing with the similarities, yes, depending on the file format you're reading, you also have text size adjustments, dark modes, etc., etc. From a just the system in the device standpoint, these are eerily similar, almost like a fringe parallel universe versions of each other. And what makes this ecosystem point interesting is how there's two very clear answers for two different types of customers of which device they should go for. And I'm gonna call it the Apple versus Android path. The winner here, if you want just a one-stop solution, I don't have to worry about anything else ever type device, is a Kindle. No question. Not only because, yes, obviously they fold in other things like Audible, where you can have whisper syncing, where listening through your audiobook will then sync up to your ebook's progress. Incredible. But there is a rich host of other things you can possibly expand your Kindle experience with, like Kindle Unlimited, which, to be fair, Kobo has their equivalent of, but it is not nearly as well set up with exclusive titles. And so, yeah, it just keeps it simple, sets you up, and lets you go on your way. But the problem is, if a company is going to restrict you in that sense to a path, you do end up losing out on some specific features. For a quick example, sideloading is technically possible on both devices. It's just gonna be a lot smoother and easier to deal with for a Kobo. So if you're not getting your ebooks through one of their two stores, because there are many other completely legitimate legal options, there's a greater chance that your Kobo will accept what you're trying to put into it. Kobo has that Android appeal, where it's not nearly as constrained of what it can work with, what can accept. And if you are specifically outside the United States, there is a massive advantage that Kobo then gains in the ecosystem space that Kindle lacks. Kindle, outside of the United States, does not allow library access, while Kobo actively encourages it. With their parent company being Rakuten, who are also involved with Libby and a whole lot of the library space, getting books from a library on your device is absolutely a breeze. Libby is an app that allows you to access library cards online, and so you can check out books without having to physically go in and do so, and that has been integrated into the Kobo system. Whereas with a Kindle, even in the United States, it's a bit more of a headache, but technically possible. To combat Kindle Unlimited, there is a Kobo equivalent. It's just not nearly as robust, though it does seem to be after this big step up in Kobo's actual physical hardware side, where they're going to be lining up their focus next, based off some of their marketing promises. So the conclusion here, despite these two products being so close to each other in quality, I believe is fairly straightforward. If you are someone who wants to keep it simple, not have a whole lot of outside the environment choices, and just wants to be able to pick up a book and continue on your way, which I believe is the vast majority of people who need an e-reader, Kindle still takes it. It also comes with a lot of niceties that if you sign up for Audible, you're probably gonna end up using and enjoying. This is, in my opinion, the basic winner. The Starbucks latte of e-readers. It is as simple as it can possibly be, with some Kindles that do focus in other areas to match whatever slight diversity there is for that very Apple-centric approach of staying within an ecosystem. But if you are looking for something that, especially if you're a comic or manga reader, has the capability to display color, and you don't necessarily want to continue to support Amazon, or if you're someone who does not want to be trapped in an ecosystem and can pull in books from all kinds of other sources, that's when Kobo starts to look a lot more appealing. In fact, I would say for people not within the United States, this gets a huge leg up with the library integration, and even still within the United States with how much simpler it should be and how much you should be supporting your local library, it should be a factor for everyone to consider. But if the niceties of an established ecosystem are just too much for you to pass up, then yeah, Kindle is obviously the way to go. I mean, Kobo does not even have whisper sync between their audiobook app and their e-reader capability. You will have to catch up one way or the other. The biggest elephant I didn't address in the room is price. That's for a few different reasons. Kobo and Kindle are strategically priced extremely similarly to each other, so I don't think the $10 to $20 difference between the one equivalent to the other is necessarily going to be a deciding factor, especially when it's going to come down to whether or not you sign up for the long-term subscription service, which which over the lifespan of your device is going to end up costing you probably way more money. As for what I will be daily driving, as the tech nerds say these days, it's going to be the Kobo Libra Pro, just because I am someone who does like reading manga and comics, and I'm getting sent books from authors that are in all kinds of formats, some of which they shouldn't be, and being able to plop them on here is going to be an absolute breeze. So the decision was easy. And as for these other two, they're gonna be gifts for people that I love, who I know are avid readers. But let me know if this video was helpful for you and what you ended up decided buying in the comments down below. It's not a right or wrong answer, which usually results in a lot of frustration, but I think it's one of those rare instances where even though it's neck and neck for each individual, the choice will be obvious. Like and subscribe if you have not already. Thank you again to Squarespace for sponsoring today's video, and have a good one, y'all. Peace.